So hello and welcome back to the Champ.ie podcast, episode 8 for the season. And I'm joined, as always, by Mr. Ronan Groome from the Irish Field, Andrew Blair White from the Blair White blog, and Thomas Coyle, trainer from Batterstown, County Meath. Great show coming up. Mike Winters, of course, who trained Safe Goal last weekend, a big weekend for the Winters Yard. We'll be catching up with Mick Winters ahead of Chatham Street Lads run in the Caspian Caviar Gold Cup, which is the feature race this Saturday at Cheltenham. I suppose, lads, first and foremost, we're going to tackle Friday's card at Cheltenham. The 150, it was scheduled. The Peterborough Chase, Grade 2. Nicky Henderson has 2 in here. Top Notch is having his first run back after a wind-up. He also has Mr. Fisher as well. But the money has come for Kalashnikov. I'll give you a quick show of betting. Kalashnikov 7-2 from 11-2 when it was first priced up. Mr. Fisher 4-1. Top Notch 4-1. Fanon Destraval is 11-2 shot for Venetia Williams. Tom George's Clondalk Castle is 13-2. Dallas 7-1. Glen Force is 16-1, 20-1. Bundoran. Ronan Groome, thoughts on the Peterborough? Strong looking, well, is it strong?
Yeah, I think it is. It's strong for a grade 2. There's a bit of depth in there. And as we were talking off air, I think there's a lot of depth that you'd make a case that it should be 9-2 the field, because there's big question marks over the horses there at the top of the market when you take into account the strength of the waist. I think Kalashnikov ran okay in the big handicap, the 3 mile handicap hurdle that was there at Haydock, and back over fences now. That's fair enough. He's got decent Cheltenham form, but you wouldn't make a real solid case for him. And Mr. Fisher was obviously pulled up last time, so though he does have nice form over the course and distance, including over in the Marsh Chase last season behind Sam Crow, he's a bit of a question to answer now. Top Notch, I thought, is top notch. He's rock solid. But he's 9 going on 10 now. This is his first start of the season, and he has to give weight away. And I know you where you and Andrew weren't really big fans of Dallas and his mark of 160, which probably might just overestimate him. But I think he's the most interesting here. He's 160 because he won a handicap chase last season. He beat First Flow off a mark of 157. Now, First Flow has been ran 4 times since and won 4 times. So if you look at it that way, he's solid enough off this mark. And the most interesting thing about him is he's coming up in trip. And he has been tried over the bigger trips before, like 2.5 miles at Newbury in that big handicap, 2.5 mile handicap chase in February, I think, and he finished 5th. And he's looked a non-stayer on occasions, but he's 7 now. And I'm just backing Paul Nicholls to have found a little key to him. I thought he stayed on well behind, I think it was the Rouge Vif race there at Cheltenham earlier in the season. And something might have clicked there that they might have got him to settle better or something like that. And he's top rated here. He gets weight off the likes of Top Notch and Bundoran up the top. And I just thought that over this trip, he was probably the most interested. The other one, just a quick mention to Barry, is Fairyhouse Destraval. He's kind of a young, up-and-coming horse. Bit disappointing that he got bet last time, but he's lots of scope to improve again. But I did think Dallas was the most interesting one at around 7-1.
Good stuff. Andrew, thoughts?
Yeah, look, I'd be willing to take on Kalashnikov for similar reasons. He's a horse I've never grown to, and neither is Mr. Fisher. I think people just have a few notions about Mr. Fisher with him being a better horse than he has anyway showed to be so far. I'd be more positive on Top Notch in this race than maybe Ronan was. Look, he's probably the only horse in here, I think, that justifies his rating of 158. He's been around the block and back the last couple of years, sweeping up these grade 2s for fun. His record fresh is decent. He has won fresh before, so he does tick that box to a certain case. I'm sure he will come on for this run, but I just think at 4-1, it's probably not the worst shout. I wouldn't, as Ronan was saying there, I can't understand why Dallas is rated 160. Personally, I think that's completely inflated. Clondalk Castle's not a horse that's ever really done it for me, and the ones at the top I'm willing to take on. I think Top Notch is by far the most solid option in the race, and at 4-1 it's not the worst price.
The feature race this weekend is the Caspian Caviar Gold Cup. It's on at 150 at Cheltenham on Saturday. And our special guest this week is Michael Winters, who trains Chatham Street Lad. It wouldn't be I suppose a common thing that Michael Winters will bring a horse over to Cheltenham. Darragh O'Keefe takes the ride, but before we preview the Caspian Caviar Gold Cup, let's hear from Michael and his thoughts on Chatham Street Lad. And of course, Cisco was mighty impressive last week at Cork. I'm delighted to be joined on this week's Champ.ie podcast ahead of Caspian Caviar Gold Cup weekend by County Cork trainer Michael Winters. Michael, it's great to have you on the show, and how was the boat trip over?
We're heading off. We're waiting for the lorry. We're all dolled up and ready and looking forward to the trip, and hoping that we get a small drop of rain over just to make sure the ground will be very safe.
Absolutely. And Chatham Street Lad, Michael, he runs in the Caspian Caviar Gold Cup on Saturday. He won at Cork over 2 miles and a half a furlong on heavy ground 3 weeks ago. Are you happy with him since then?
Yeah, he came out of the race very well. And he's definitely going to appear to go backwards. He probably has improved again, hopefully. And it's a big task, I suppose, to travelling over and putting everything together again. But he's a big solid horse looking his nature all now. And if he's to take a trip for the owners across the water and see what he's made of, look, this is his big test. The hill is going to be the test. Do you know what I mean? And 2.5 is probably, look, he always looked a horse for a bit of distance. He was running so well over 2 miles that we had to be happy with nearly staying 2. But this race is 2.5 now, and I'd say that's his trip. And if he's looking up, well, it's probably a big call. I didn't study too much. I looked at, it was called out to me, all the different trainers in England, they'd be high profile, their horses. They wouldn't be running for the sake of just running around, you know what I mean? So it's not, you'd often get a race. And the race would break up for small bit, and there'd be horses that'd be going backward, young horses coming through. But I tell you, these are they're potential good horses. So he has a big call to make, but look, he's in great form.
Yeah, he's an 8-year-old, so he's had plenty of experience, but he's only had the 6 starts, Michael, over fences, and he's been given an English mark of 141. Are you happy enough with that?
Well, I'd say the English mark, in fairness to them, I think the standard that they give you, £6 more when you come from Ireland to England, you know. And, well, if that's the case, he actually only gave him 4 because he said, I believe that his statement was that he hadn't proved that he was at the mark that he's at in Ireland now because he won the last day. And the new mark wasn't proven as such, so he just put him up to 4. So the handicapper welcome. I say he was welcoming us to come to Cheltenham. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes maybe they might feel this horse coming over now has a bit more in hand, but no, he wasn't trying to push us away anyway. Give us the £4.
An exciting time for the yard. Of course, last weekend was great for yourselves. Just a word about the owner, Vivian Healy, and Darragh O'Keefe as well rides. And what's your relationship with both?
Vivian and Liam Healy, they have a business, a hotel above in Mayo. I think it's Mayo Sligo, and we stayed above after Ballinrobe races there 1 year, and they treated us very well. And he has a business in Trustown that's only. It's where Jimmy Gordon is living, and Jimmy Gordon was the man that was friendly with him and said he'd buy him a horse that would race, that would develop with time, that he'd carry a bit of weight and he'd be able to win, that he should be able to come into a good horse, but he wouldn't be a horse to come to hand like the sharp horses. Yeah. And so this fellow grew, and he grew to be well over 17 hands. So Liam and Vivian, they are in the area on and off and stuff. They're in Cheltenham now for the races and stuff. So they're looking forward to it. And, they're great. They'll take their beating if it ain't, you know what I mean? The main thing is that they're having a crack at it, and once your animal comes home in one piece and gets a nice trip over and back, and if he can win, it'd be fantastic. And, you just say at least you've tried it. You've given it a shot.
I was going to say to you, there might be a rendition of the Bowl Teddy Quill on the boat on the way home. Surely you would do the business, all COVID precautions taken.
Yeah, well, the answer to that would be, maybe we might try, but my wife at home, if I ever started to sin, she says it goes through her head. So I don't know about in the boat. Maybe if I was in the bathroom, maybe in the shower, I might try no line. But after that, I think the audience would be slim. Or maybe we might get you might be told shut up.
We just go back to last weekend, Michael, on home soil, because it was a great weekend for yourself. Say's goal was mighty.
Yeah, well, I tell you, we couldn't believe it this morning, because, you know, the animals when they're on farm and stuff like that, well, if we let them down too much, you might have to bring it all up again. So we just take your way over with her. But she was bouncing. She was bouncing coming up. Abby Fitzgerald, the other young lady, she was her leaving set done. And she's grand in light. And I just see her coming up to the yard after being below on the river and just a little hack around the gallop, and she looks as fresh as she ever was in her life.
I'm sorry, and what type is she at home? Because I know you had Rebel Fitz before.
She's old. She's a wonderful look, putting on, tying the straps in front and little bit stuff and things that she'd be biting a little bit, and she hears the jib stack. And she just might, if you walked in, you grabbed her all back leg or something like that, she just might give a kick both behind and after. She's not. And you know, she's fantastic out in the paddock then. Chatham Street Lad now said she can go out to be saying this, so might bring the horse. She's the opposite. She goes out and she's nearly walking around. She's very laid back. And even at the races, she's the one that she walks around the races. It's so simple for her to go racing. Like, she doesn't bother anything. She burns no energy. She goes racing and she takes the whole of it and off she goes.
Have you spoke to Trevor Hemmings? Because you know he likes his chasers, and about future options maybe this season.
Well, what he just said was you don't have to worry about going across the water or doing anything else. And I said, look, you put your head in the block and you run a bit near to races. But I said, this was on the outside the door. The last day she was eating 2 hours before the race, and she was eating again 2 hours after the race at home. And he said, that's all fine. And he says, you can go chasing when you like. But we were discussing it then, and the manager was saying, you will have a season that you need to protect. So she won't be chasing really until next, I suppose, next September. She'll be starting around the same time as she started this year, if she's alive. If you're not alive, somebody else will be doing it. And I couldn't terribly exciting, so we really don't want to do the dog and chance and ground get too good or anything like that. She loves soft ground and she's safe in this and whatever, and she probably go on a bit better obviously, but like her, she seems to be able to handle this on the last, you know, and she floats her way through and things. So if we can go the same, well, like the good mares, we kind of stay to your mares. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you can't go very wrong. And if you're getting beat, you have to look around a little bit. Moving his walk, you keep going that way, like. And we had a big mare before, I suppose, for Bill. She was a big, strong mare, but this one has her own character, all right. She'd be a one that you just wouldn't do something sudden to. She is the boss. Do you know what I mean? And it's both when they're good at it, they're allowed to be the boss, haven't they? If they weren't much good, you might get away with it. She's like if you were the wife at home, I suppose, and she was the bread here, no? You would profit more, wouldn't you?
Questions just from Twitter, Michael. Robbie Corcoran asks, will Say Skull go to the Albert Bartlett, or what is the plan as she's 7 rising 8?
I'd like to know. The plan is to go chasing in the future, and these are all bonuses. She could still come up in Taurus Sunday week. There's a great chance she will. And we'll take it one day at a time from there. I wouldn't be jumping on. If she's running well, we'll be making the entry for England. I wouldn't even know that being snapped. You know, the names, you're trying out those names. I wouldn't know see the entry and see what's in front or whatever, or when they're closing or such. Yeah. Like, when you wouldn't be having travelled to those races, like, you wouldn't be well so aware. Some lads would, punters would, or fellas would be following or farming or whatever. Have you looked at the name of the race for the weekend? You know what I mean? Yeah. So what we'll be doing is we'll probably she'll be sticking some mares programs more than likely, and we'll be tipping once maybe before Christmas. It probably could be in Tullus, she's such good form, and we'll dabble away from there. And when the ground gets a bit drier, the mare goes off form a bit, which can happen. We say, geez, we got a great run. And leave tomorrow for a bit of trouble. But for the moment, she's in great form. She's not getting hardship. And, you know, she's like, you go training, well, you nearly need a nice bit of work once a week. I mean, and then if you're after a while, it might be once every 5 days or something. Well, this one is getting in the race. And she's thriving in it for the moment.
Absolutely.
So, look, we can't say much more on that because it's the truth, like, as regards to Trevor Hemmings, and he asked about him. There's no pressure on going to I said Liverpool would be a lovely track for at least do the choice of Liverpool or Cork or Cheltenham for the same race, same horses and same everything. I'd definitely say Liverpool. If you were talking the big tracks.
Yeah.
Look like we're not dreaming event here for the moment anyway.
Absolutely. Well, she's very exciting, Michael, and I wish you all the best with her. Yeah. Simon Curry asks, if you could take any other horse from any other stable, which horse would you pick and why?
Well, I suppose at the moment I'd have to steal that great, good horse that Gordon Elliott is doing a great job with in By Allen, I suppose, wouldn't I?
Suppose he'd be up there all right, wouldn't he?
Oh, shit, he's unbeaten, isn't he?
Unbeaten.
And I say he won a pint of pints as well, so he's proven probably from every angle of everything, and you know what you're talking about him, they're great men, like they cover. There's an awful lot of ground to cover with all these horses, training and media and coverage and jockeys and everything else. I suppose that's it up so fantastic, but there's a lot of pressure on those men, so they're doing a great job. So, you know, I don't like to, if someone rang up there about a horse, I wouldn't be trying to grab him off the next if I could. Do you know what I mean? But I suppose God never let him. If he became available,
if there was a transfer market, then By Allen would be number one for you.
Oh, so that is she's on the market. I think this week for as a broodmare.
Yeah.
Do you know? She'd be one. Wouldn't she be a lovely broodmare? No. Miss United, by the way, her phone made 200,000 there last week in the sales. Went to Japan.
Lovely.
So the markets, you know, those good ones, they kind of pay back again, you know, in the mares, like it's trying to do the mare. I mean, there, and she's running away and something happens. So there's a great fall back once she can face or anything like that. So it's again back up. I would be looking forward maybe for Trevor Hemmings now, that mare to stay in the family with him, he'd be breathing away up on things, and they wouldn't be able to forget her so quick when they'd be looking at the mare.
Michael.
You know?
Michael, I must ask you, I suppose, for our Champ.ie listeners, is there any, I suppose, young horse or horse maybe that we may not know or have seen that you are, I suppose, excited about seeing at some stage this season?
Well, like, you know, for years now, we had Paddy the Plaster, we sold him on as a young horse ready to find the point, and Monsignor was sold on, but we didn't get the big money that he showed himself after, and a few that way we had into Daily Rock for another local man. He went Harry Finley bought him. He was okay as well, but we have 5 or 7 horses between us this year. Western Breeze. He's a big old Westerner. He's 17 hands. He's floating around the place. His training will be light. It'll be 6 months, I'd say, before this time next year, maybe before he puts his toe out. But at the moment, there's no ceiling for him at the moment, but we're just keep him calm. And the look of God, then there's, I'd say, my wife and a man in Cork there, Finbar Welsh. They have the full brother between the two of them. They'll be costing good money. They'll be costing 35 grand in more horses, like. Do you know what I mean? That's their own money that you'll be paying for big trophy horses out in the fields and things, but a fine horse again. So Western Breeze is the first one anyway, and Dorothy isn't empty yet.
Michael Winters, it was an absolute pleasure talking to you ahead of Caspian Caviar Gold Cup, and I wish you all the very best.
I think I'd be really tired if I got one more Galway hole.
Some character Michael Winters is Ronan Groome.
I'm not sure how many of our British listeners are going to understand what's been said there, but he's a gentleman, he's a top man, and yeah, wish him the best of luck.
a definition of a breath of fresh air, and certainly for the racing industry. Brilliant character. But let's just do a show of betting as well, just for this Caspian Caviar Gold Cup. Al Dancer 6-1, Master Tommy Tucker 6-1, Windsor Avenue is 13-2 for Brian Ellison and the north of England. Cepage for Venetia Williams 7-1, Cool Cody, who was a winner of the Paddy Power, at 8-1, Chatham Street Lad 10-1, Midnight Shadow for Sue Smith 10-1, Saint Sonne, who was well fancied for the Paddy Power and finished when he fell in the race 11-1, Musical Slave 12-1, has come in for a bit of support for Philip Hobbs. Good Boy Bobby 14-1 and a 16-1 the rest. Ronan, we'll stick with you on the Paddy Power. First of all, on Chatham Street Lad, listen, he's up in trip here, likely raced enough over fences. I actually like him for this.
Yeah. The only kind of problem I'd have with him, Barry, is a lot of his winning has been done at Cork, which would be quite flat, and that would kind of raise a question to me whether he can go around Cheltenham. But he's only raced, as you said, he's only raced 6 times over fences, and he's open to further improvement. And the horse he beat the last day, Off You Go, runs in a good race at Fairyhouse, probably a race that's probably as good as this, the way it's worked out. So you can make a case from there, and it's a bang open race, isn't it, really? Look, it's 6-1 the field, Barry, and I didn't really know why Cool Cody was kind of maybe a couple of points higher than the favourites there at the moment. The way he won at obviously won the Bet Victor, or is it the Paddy Power now? That was a serious performance from the front. Now the problem is, will he get that sort of leeway in front again? I'm not sure. They gave him a good 6-7 lengths down the back, and he just got into a rhythm. But the way he stayed on up the hill, I thought was excellent. Horses can run well over this distance a lot. It's specialised distance, is 2.5 miles at Cheltenham, be it on the old course or the new course, and lots of horses come back and run well again. I just thought he would be closer to favouritism. And the other one I wanted to give a good mention to was Benatar for Gary Moore and Jamie Moore. Now he's got a huge kind of break to overcome, but it's interesting that they're going to come straight here, and he's down now to a mark of 142. I think that's a mark that he can be competitive off. If you go back to his best form now, admittedly I am kind of searching here and going back a good bit in the form book, but he was third to Shattered Love in the Marsh Chase that year. That was probably the best renewal of the Marsh Chase. There was Grade 1 winners all around him. Terrafor was second, Kemboy was just behind them in fourth, and Finian's Oscar was fifth. I think that was an excellent run, and I think he's a much better horse than 142. Whether he can show it or not on Saturday is another thing. But he's only had 8 starts over fences. He's won 3 of them. He's open to further improvement. And I just think the clue is the fact that they've come here first time up. They surely have him ready or primed, or think they can have him ready and primed for the day, given the pot that is in it. And at around 20-1, I thought he was very interesting.
Andrew Blair White, I suppose you were on to me earlier off the record about getting notions for horses. This Windsor Avenue is certainly one you've got on your mind for some time. Listen, what was your thoughts? He had a good run the last day, to be fair.
Yeah, look, I think he brings the best form into the race, coming second to Imperial Aura by 2 lengths up in Carlisle. Looks rock solid now. You think Imperial Aura would be a favourite for this race. I can't have Al Dancer at all, to be honest. I can't understand. Like, he's just a horse that constantly gets well backed in these types of races without actually winning them. Master Tommy Tucker, he could potentially blitz them, but his jumping's problematic at times, and I couldn't be backing him at the prices. I do like Ronan shouting Benatar. I know they really fancied this horse for the Paddy Power back in 2018. He actually got a stone bruise on the day of it, and his stablemate ended up winning it, Baronalco. But the only problem with him was he was already a fresh horse when he was being run. So I think after 2 years, it'll be a hard job for Jamie Moore to keep hold of him. I just really liked this Windsor Avenue. Certainly, I don't know whether Brian Ellison's given me a short straw here, but he'd make you think that this mark of 148 was far less than what it should be. As I say, second to Imperial Aura last time. His chase career looked like it was going very, very well last year. Fell off the rails. I think he had a wind up. Back now, second start after a wind up. Brian Hughes booked. He's generally a really good jumper, which I think will help him in a big handicap like this. And 13-2 is a price I'm willing to take. He is a cliff horse of mine. I do understand that, but I do think he actually has a genuinely very good chance in this.
Windsor Avenue or Gallant John Joe, who holds a bigger place in your heart, Andrew Blair White?
Gallant John Joe. You just wait till he wins a big handicap round Leopardstown.
Thomas Coyle. I think we spoke early in the week just about Mick Winter's horse, and you mentioned that going up in trip might be, I suppose, a bit of a worry for you. But the fact that he's won that heavy ground at Cork, I mean, he's by Beneficial. Am I right in saying Beneficials do go on a little bit a better ground? Now, Mike said that he would appreciate a little bit more rain. But getting 2.5 miles on heavy ground at Cork, you'd have to think he'd get 2.5 miles, wouldn't you?
I personally, I don't think he will get it around Cheltenham. He's been placed over 2.5 mile in Ireland, all right. But as Ronan said, he's won around Cork and he's run around Ballinrobe, about 2 mile, 2 mile 1. He's a very strong travelling horse. So I don't know, he jumps well. Conor Orr, a good friend of mine, he rode him the 2 times to win. He was stepped up to 2.5 mile between them 2 wins, and he finished 4th. It's a different kettle of fish now going around Cheltenham up and down hills. I personally, where I love to say the Irish angle and we have a great chance, but I personally just don't think he's going to stay up that hill. I do like Windsor Avenue. I think that's cracking form with Imperial Aura at Carlisle. But I think Al Dancer at the prices each way is such a solid bet. He bet Master Tommy Tucker by 2.5 lengths. He gave him £6. He's receiving £6 this time. Like, that's £12 in a good handicap. And he's beating the horse all right. I know it was only around Newton Abbott or somewhere like that. But, boys, it's there in black and white. If you look into it, that's a £12 turnaround. And he's after beating him by 2 lengths. I know he does get beaten these kind of races. But for me, black and white, it's staring in front of me. He can't be out of the money. He has to be a great each way bet at 6-7 to 1.
Strong fancy there for Thomas Coyle. I think if Mike Vince was on the podcast, I've no doubt about which horse he'd be putting up. Horse carrying 10 stone 6. I thought he was interesting. He is the reserve. If he gets in, I thought he ran if we like Clondalk Castle on Friday's card, then Musical Slave was given an easy enough time, I thought, the last day at Newbury. And if he was to get in here, there's a bit of support for him at 12 to 1 for that man, JP McManus. I thought he might be interesting. But my selection in the race, Chatham Street Lad. I think, just picking up on your point about weights and that, Thomas, the English handicapper hasn't been that hard on Chatham Street Lad. I think I'd be a little bit more confident that he will get to 2.5 miles than you. As you say, he jumps well. He's been ran in handicaps and he's only had the 6 runs over fences. I do like him.
To be fair to the English handicapper over the last couple of years, it has come more sort of level, where times before when horses were going for handicaps in Cheltenham, they were getting this, like, especially if it was a Tony Martin horse a few years ago, he was getting a stone off his Irish, which was ludicrous, really. But they have, over the years, they have sort of come nearly level enough, so they don't exactly get murdered like they used to. So which is good to see. It gives a bit more initiative to go over as well, instead of thinking you're going to get a stone on top to run around like.
I think he'll run well. As I said, he was down to run last weekend, of course, as Navan as well. They've taken their chance. They've rolled the dice, and I wish them the best of luck. And Mick Winters, of course, for this one. Lads, we must talk now about the international hurdle, because we must have talked about Goshen going to run for at least 3 times on the podcast. He eventually runs here at 3 o'clock at Cheltenham. I suppose if you were able to forgive him his flat runs, would 2 to 1 be one of the bets of the weekend, Andrew Blair White?
Yeah, and he's still 9 to 4 in places as well. I think this is one that people are going to be very one way or the other. You either think it's the best price you've seen, and possibly the best price all weekend, or the worst price you've seen all weekend. I'd probably be siding for the first. I think I'd back him, actually. He's not a horse I particularly have actually taken to, but I'd like him to win. The rest of these, maybe you could make a case for someone improving, but none of the rest of these are going to go anywhere close in a champion hurdle. And I want the champion hurdle to be as strong as possible. With Epatant, this guy, Samoa, all these horses. You want the division to be as strong as possible. And this is the only horse in this race that could tear it apart. I know that's a big if. You're taking an awful lot on trust, but Gary Moore's horses are in good nick at the moment. I think they've had 7 winners the last 2 weeks, had a few winners at Sandown last weekend. I don't know what to make of the absences, not running in the King well, not running in the Fighting Fifth. I don't understand it, but the Triumph Hurdle form is actually working out a little better than I maybe gave it credit for at the time, and I would probably give him the benefit of the doubt in this, and 9-4 mightn't be the worst price.
Might be difficult for some to understand. Not for Gary Moore, and Mike Vince caught up with him earlier in the week. Let's hear Gary's thoughts.
Yeah, really looking forward to it. He's been very good the last few weeks. He's schooled early in the week and he jumped good. He had a little school this morning in the school, which he was very, very quick and accurate, and I couldn't be more happy with him. People were quite rude about him before he went to Cheltenham, and I knew I'd have him right for Cheltenham, and luckily we did, except for what happened at the last, but he was spot on at everything at Cheltenham in that day until what happened at the last. But that wasn't a bad jump, that was just a freak of nature that happened. The Wincanton race was going to come too quick after Goodwood, where he had a harder race than I'd liked him to have done, and it took a little bit more out of him than I expected. That was the main reason he didn't go to Wincanton. And then after that, he just wasn't really himself. And then as for Newcastle, we give him a bit of work, and his scope wasn't perfect. So his work wasn't A1 and his scope wasn't A1, so he didn't go. It's very, very frustrating for me, the team, the owner especially, because I've been dying to run the horse, but I don't want to run a horse that's not 110% right in top class races, But he's very inexperienced really over hurdles, He's only had 4 runs. And if you run in top class races, I would guess, I've never trained a horse as good as this before, but I'd like to think that you've got to be pretty damn fit and pretty knowing your job as well, So yes, he does need experience, but there are 2 or 3 options that we can take after Saturday, all being well.
So yeah, interesting to hear from Gary Moore, his thoughts and why Goshen didn't run up until this point. Just a quick show of the betting, Andrew. You're right, 9-4 Goshen, Score Royal 5-1. Song for someone who was impressive, albeit a 3-runner race at Ascot last time. He's 5-1. Silver Streak, who was horribly unlucky in the Fighting Fifth, 13-2. Chidabello has 15-2 for the Skeletons. Ballyandy 9-1. Call Me Lord 12-1. Somerville Boy 12s. Fernana Blue 12s and 20-1 Stormy Island. Thomas Coyle, thoughts on Goshen? Am I right in saying you're not a fan?
No, I hope he does turn into it, but I wouldn't be going near him until he does something. Like he went back to the flat, and you were saying if he was having nice runs and was running on at the end, you'd be saying something. But the last day, Hector Crouch gave him the up and get going, and it didn't. He didn't spare him in the last furlong, I tell you that. And
as Mick Winter said about Seysco last week, check out the plant.
Well, Hector Crouch wasn't missing this lad in the last furlong the last day. So for me, look, I hope, as Andrew says, we hope this division does kind of get a bit, but I wouldn't be having any of them until he goes and wins a race like this. And saying that as well, he's probably dodged a few engagements, and this has probably landed as the easiest target since he's been in them, like not taking on Epatant in a Fighting Fifth and that. But I wouldn't be having a bet on him anyway. But until he goes and shows us that spark that he done in the Triumph, we were kind of half saying Silver Streak might give Epatant a race, but we know what happened in that race. But he's probably a good each way angle in this. I'd rather be backing him at 13-2 than Goshen at 9-4.
Ron, how impressed were you? Was that he was sung for someone? Now, it was a 3-runner race the last day. Is this a horse that could be going in under the radar? I mean, it was 2 miles and 3 furlongs at Ascot. on softer ground. Now, he has drifted a little bit in the betting now from 7-2 out to 5-1, but I don't know where they're going to run him at the entry last year. He didn't go to Cheltenham anyway, but no, call me Lord. He bet him convincingly the last day, and is he one maybe that could give the favourite something to think about anyway?
It's a difficult race to get a handle of, Barry, and just, I know I was saying Andy is the exposed type, but he's the solid type as well, though. If you look at his runs this season, he's finished second twice. His run to finish second in the Great was against the Shunter, who whatever had about probably a stone in hand running against him there. That was a huge run. If it got into a soft ground and it was maybe, I don't know, developed into a kind of slow pace, he'd be the one you'd be with each way, I'd say. I think he's in around at 9-1 to mark, but
anything else, lads, from around the grounds? We have Fairyhouse, of course, as well on Saturday, but I'll open the floor. Thomas Coyle, anything hidden away this weekend for you around the grounds?
Ronan Groome mentioned the horse already of Charles Burns in the handicap in Fairyhouse. He's Simon Torrens up taking 5 off him. He's only 10-8, which brings him down to 10-3. It is a competitive handicap, but he could be well in.
Ronan Groome, anything else you want to mention this weekend?
Yeah, I like about 5 in that handicap. This is a really good race. This 2 mile handicap chase, I think it's better than the Caspian Caviar, because you have the likes of Daily Tiger in here. Daily Tiger beat Tornado Flyer last time easily at Punchestown, and Tornado Flyer came out and finished second to Min in the Grade 1 there. Owen Walsh taking the £5 off. And Nolan always loved this Daily Tiger, and he said that the reason he wasn't running last year, they found some problem with his tooth. His tooth was like going into the side of his mouth or something that really causing him a lot of pain, and they got it sorted, and he thinks he's a different horse this season, and by the form of his first run, he's probably right. But then you have the likes of Chosen Mate in there, won the Grand Annual, and Rob James is the interesting booking for him. Rob James with a £7 claim is like £7 and I'm not surprised that Gordon Elliott might end up using him a lot more this season. I'm telling everyone that you should watch out for whatever he's booked for at Cheltenham this year at the festival. Obviously, he got his win there last season on Milan Native. He's 200 winners probably ridden on in point to points. So with a £7 claim on the track, it's hugely valuable. So Gordon selected to put him up on Chosen Mate, who ran quite well last time behind St. Ra at Tipperary. So I just think it's a really good race. But Daily Tiger, as I said, is the one I'm really interested in. Off Mark 147, £10 for the good Punchestown win. I think he has a lot more to give and could progress. He was in the Hilly Chase last week, and they decided to hold him back and go for this race, which is interesting as well. Take advantage of a potentially lenient handicap mark. So Daily Tiger for me.
Yeah, you mentioned Chosen Mate, who I suppose if he stays in, he's going to help keep the weights down for a lot of horses in here. A Wave of the Sea is one down the very bottom there, Andrew Blair White on 10 stone. I know he's still a 4-year-old, has had his win over fences, but is he one you might be keeping an eye on in here?
I'll be keeping an eye on him, but I don't think he'll win now on the weekend. I still think he needs to be stepped up in trip. It wouldn't surprise me if this horse is a favourite for a Galway plate in a year or two's time. I think there'll be some long-term goal with him, but I doubt he'd win over 2 miles on the weekend. His jumping at the moment leaves a fair bit to be desired. Anything else,
Andrew Blair White, do you want to mention for this weekend?
Yeah, really sweet on one actually in the big handicap at Doncaster, 3:15. A horse called Bold Mare of Caroline Bailey's. I think was the course and distance winner last year. Loves these kind of big galloping tracks with the long straights. Has won at Leicester, has won at Doncaster, and was going to win the Titan Novices Chase at Wetherby. So he loves that type of a course. Is run quite well now the last 2 times. He usually comes on for his reappearance run. Then he ran a banger last time, which wouldn't have suited him quite as much. I think he's got a massive chance. Paddy Brennan's booked on him.
Lovely stuff. Thomas Coyle, nap and MB the weekend.
My nap is Al Dancer. I think he's value at 6-1 just on the weights. And my next best, I'm actually going to be cheeky and I'm going to throw in 2 big prices in Fairyhouse at the weekend. One is called Smith's Girl, of Shane Crawley's. She had 2 duck eggs and caught the eye massively the last day in Navan. He finished 6th. Handicapper wasn't too nice on him. He's a mark of 109. So there could be an improvement. Shane's do improve in a handicap. So very interesting. And just another one is Mystic Ember, Eddie Cawley's. The cousin won on him 2 runs ago. But he seems to do all his best running in Fairyhouse. His 2 wins have come from there. He's left Coyle on him. He's taken 7 off 11 stone. Just interesting. He does all his best running there. Probably tactics the last day were a little bit wrong. He kind of needs. He's a bit claustrophobic. He needs to be kind of out amongst it on his own. So just he's 10-7, the triple suit. He could sneak an each way price at it. He could be a good each way price and sneak in the money.
Ronan Groome, Napan MB of the weekend.
I just mentioned him, Daily Tiger. I think he could be very well handicapped off 147. He runs at Fairyhouse. And NB going to go with a big price. I think Benatar could be an outsider to note in the big race. The Caspian Caviar over Cheltenham. I think a mark of 142 could underestimate his ability.
Yeah, Nap for myself is Sky Pirate. Nice run actually in the Paddy Power last time. Back in trip is in the 115 at Cheltenham on Saturday. Tom Scudamore, he's in off 10 stone 1 here. Back in trip. Travelled very well in fairness. I think Mike Vince was quite keen on him for the Paddy Power. But back in trip here, I think it will suit. And that's Sky Pirate for me, for John Joe O'Neill. That's the Nap. And Chatham Street Lad, I do think it has a good chance this weekend. The English handicapper, as we said, wasn't too hard on him. I think a step up in trip, based on his run at Cork, is going to suit him. He'd be my next best for the weekend. I think Andrew, myself and yourself in the 8 points to play, we have a lot of work to do, don't we?
Yeah, well, geez, we need simply the bets to start coming out on Saturdays again, because I think I'm on minus 24 here.
When you're putting up that leader table, I actually think I might be on top for the first time ever.
Yeah, it will be up on Saturday morning. But Thomas Coyle, I think, what was it, Flooring Porter? You must be congratulated. Yourself and Ronan Groome flagged him up last Saturday. Pity you didn't flag him up, I suppose, a day earlier on the podcast.
We didn't know you was running, didn't we? Not Ronan.
You set the agenda, Barry, so we couldn't. I wasn't on the podcast, so it was impossible for me to flag him up.
Yes, well, just a bit, I suppose, Thomas, I was down with yourself during the week as well. We've a bit of exciting news to come for our listeners to stay tuned over the coming weeks. Maybe a big Christmas giveaway